Welcome to DinsTalk, the space where soul wisdom meets bold action. I'm Mia Dins, your host, here to ignite your fire, help you claim your power, and guide you to take unstoppable steps towards your dream. Every episode is designed to awaken your purpose, fuel your passion, and spark transformation in your life. It's time to step into your truth and never stop. Let's dive in. Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode on DinsTalk. Let's talk soul. And I'm so excited for my guest today. It's no other than Barry Walton. And Barry and I, we connected in a very, very random way, yet it's very, of course, a synchronicity. I actually was searching through Facebook groups, and you were replying. Actually, you commented on someone else's post, and I saw your comment, and I felt this pull to connect with you. I didn't even know who you were, I guess. And also, like you commented on my search as well, which was beautiful. And Barry he has done a lot of things. And one of the biggest things, or one of his passions, is to do actually documentaries on athletes. And you have been working in the film industry and Hollywood, all these things, but also you have a very, very interesting life. You spent searching, asking the big questions, putting yourself into uncomfortable situations, meditating, practicing all sorts of things. And I really loved that about you. And also your own journey, how you came to explore more your spirituality, moving away from the religion into spirituality and all that beautiful stuff, and traveling a lot, meeting a lot of different people. And you came to a point in your life where you thought there's more to life than hustle. And yeah, it's just a whole bunch of things. And I really loved our first talk. So we will just roll with it. And I really welcome you. And I'm so grateful and honored that you're here. And I know our listeners will have so much joy, like learning about your story and feeling your energy, because yeah, it's just beautiful. So how about you introduce yourself a little bit and talk about your journey, and just give us a little overview of what you do, because I'm definitely didn't do justice of what everything you do and accomplished. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. This is so awesome to be here and talking to your guests and your audience and listening and being part of this. And, you're definitely an inspirational person. I definitely remember when we wrote, you were very passionate. I loved your passion. It was so exciting. And, I've spent my life working, my career life, the majority of the last 20, 30 years working in filmmaking and then ultimately documentary filmmaking. And recently I've started writing, and I'm an author of one book, and I'm working on my second book. And that journey of filmmaking has taken me to work in Hollywood, where I was able to work on sets of films and commercials with, some of the biggest names, just a couple, Will Smith, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Jennifer Lopez, among others, and not to name drop, but just to establish kind of, my experience at the highest level. And then that took me into what I fell in love with, documentary filmmaking, which was working for Animal Planet and Nat Geo on some projects. And from there, I have just chased documentary filmmaking ever since. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I got into working in pro sports with the NHL and the NBA, where after kind of capturing ultra runners, one of my friends ran the Hurt 100 race, which is in Hawaii. And that led me to capturing the highest, longest foot race in the world, which was in the Himalayas over Kardungla and Tenglangla at 18,300 feet near the city of Leh in the region of Ladakh, north of India, in northern India, excuse me. So that athlete experience led me into pro sports. And as of recently, I've captured people riding bikes across the country. We're working on a film right now that's going to be coming out in the winter on an Olympic snowboarder named Jake Vedder. And so there's a lot of work there that I've been doing and that I'm passionate about and that I've been on for the past 20 years. But for me, what I love most, and you said it, is uncovering the truth of our experience, telling that truth, asking the tough questions of why we're here, and looking for answers to that drive purpose and meaning to this life in this short period of time that we're on this planet, and we're contributing to each other's lives and the experience of this planet, which is a divine experience and a spiritual experience, to say the least. And so a lot of what I have done is kind of in search of that peace within us that we all are kind of, whether we are verbal about it or whether it's subconscious, we're all kind of searching for.
I absolutely love that. And you know what I love the most, also from what I took away from our first connection, is how humble you are about everything. I absolutely love it. And how you drop those names. I know. I understand now. Those people are just people like Jennifer Lopez. I love them, by the way. One of some of my favorite actors. And like it's just like because they are just normal people, right? Like we all are. They have their own troubles and problems. And it must have been, an honor to work with them. But I just love how humble you are. And I love your passion too. So thank you so much. I think that's where we connect. You're so passionate about life, uncovering life and exploring all the different facets and pillars of life and like challenging yourself. I love that about you too, this athlete mindset, getting into uncomfortable situations and grow, because as we know, we can only grow when we get uncomfortable. There's no growth process when we stay comfortable. And I wanted to actually go back to when we first spoke. I think that helps a little bit to rewind how your journey. When you were 16, you were in a car accident, if I remember correctly, right? And that
Yeah.
basically altered your life path. Can you share a bit about that?
Well, yeah, so that's very true. I mean, I think that did had a significant impact on my trajectory because it was what I would have perceived at that age a near death experience. We were in a car, a Volkswagen Beetle Bug. You remember the Bugs? I'm sure Volkswagen is a German company, so of course those are very popular. I don't know I don't know that I've seen Volkswagen Bugs in Europe though, but they were so popular in America. I'm sure they were in Europe too. But they were an unstable car and they rolled like a barrel down a hill because they look like a barrel. And we rolled that thing 3 times. My friend got thrown out of the car. I had secured myself in the car by raising my hands against the ceiling and pressing my feet against the floorboard. They didn't have seat belts and they were cut out of the car. And we just had this traumatic experience where I genuinely thought I could potentially die, where I thought, and I had serious injury in my back, which took years to kind of learn because it wasn't diagnosed at the time. But I couldn't walk. I came out of the car and couldn't walk, and I turned up to God and I said, God, if you save me, if you give me my life from this moment, I'll serve you. And I just kept saying it over and over. I just remember that moment being so crazy. It was so crazy. And so from that moment, I felt a certain sense of obligation to both fulfill a promise that I made to God at a young age, but also understand who God was and understand what that promise was and what it meant to serve God. And that's been a journey that I've been on my entire life. I'm more clear on that than I've been in the past, because it happened in stages. And I talk about this in my book, The Unknown Adventurer. And in the book, I talk about the accident, but I also talk about the stages because after that, I went to Bible college and that was a very religious experience, but that wasn't all that I was looking for. I was looking for a deeper spiritual experience. So I went through a deconstructionist phase where I broke down all of religion and I separated it all and I accepted that maybe the narrative could be false. And I said, if it's a true narrative of life and death, God or heaven or hell, then God will reveal this to me. I don't need a book to do this. I don't need a religion. And through that process, I began to reconstruct the value of God in my life and what he added beyond the peril of the afterlife, but instead about what it means to be in observation and recognition of something greater than myself, and then what it means to giving my life purpose and meaning, and that he's like he, she, it, they, whatever, I don't mean to add a gender or a identity to God other than to say I'm using language to describe what I understand, because I realize that what I'm explaining is profoundly existential and not in the physical form. So, I know that kind of had a moment before this speaking of energy, and I do think it is energy. It is something greater than ourselves, but using terminology that I understand because I speak language and you speak language, just kind of breaking it down for those members of the audience that might kind of question those terms, know that it's just my best way of describing it. That's what I went in search of, and in that process began to discover something greater than myself and a value to that. And so that has driven a lot of my life and a lot of my life's work, because life is temporal. We're only not infinite beings, we're finite beings. We're only here for a certain amount of time. And what we do on this planet and what we contribute to this planet is the greatest gift that we can give in exchange for our life, because life is a gift. It's a beautiful gift. And so why wouldn't we give back? And why wouldn't we risk a gift that we could not possibly have given to ourselves? Why wouldn't we risk it to serve something greater than ourselves, right? Why wouldn't we risk it all for that? And that's really what I think life is about. I think too many people sell themselves short, spend their lives chasing short-term objectives of money or possessions or prominence or significance in exchange for their own self needs, which is a very small perspective of what we could, the potential that we all have. And so I've spent a lot of my life trying to balance that out. And what you say as humble, I say is like, even in my achievements and in my greatest achievements, they're only to say I worked really hard, and my goal was always to get to the top of the bar, but it was never about me. It was only about doing my best for something greater than myself, serving a higher purpose. And so that's kind of what the car accident initiated, and that's kind of where it led, which was this never-ending search for what it means to be alive and why we're here on this planet.
Amen to that. That's all I can say. And I'm like getting tears in my eyes, which is usually for me, it's a big sign that this just resonates with me in every cell of my body. It's about it took me a while to understand that, of course, but it's about the process. It's about the becoming, not the getting to something, not the outcome. It's about the becoming, really. And it doesn't matter what it is. Well, if it's about like becoming the best mother in the world, or if it's about becoming an Olympic athlete or the best filmmaker, whatever it is about the process to understand, who do I need to become in order to get there, and falling in love with the process. And it just took me a while to understand that in life. And I'm probably can say I will always figure it out, because ego comes in at times, and that's very natural. And that's what we're here for, right? To transmute that. And it's such a beautiful, I love everything you said. It was so full of juicy parts. And would you like, because I mean, it happened very early. I mean, with 16, other people discover alcohol at that time, or other things, distractions. Like, your journey is very unique, and then put you on a path where you basically went deep within you, rather than like being focused to the external too much. Would you say that this is
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good question. I mean, I do think, I mean, I had distractions in my life. I definitely had temptations. I wasn't those I was, but I had awareness of something greater than myself that I felt like needed to be solved. I had a deep desire at a young age to understand meaning and purpose of life. Like, all the kids that I knew growing up around left school and went chasing their careers and went chasing their possessions. And, I grew up in America. I love America, you know, and for better for worse, we're a consumer society, and we measure our achievements by our possessions very often. And I was surrounded by my peers who were off chasing possessions and careers, and I was confused by that at a young age, because for me, it was, what's the point of chasing all these things when they're all going to deteriorate, when they're all going to, when life is so temporary? And if life is so temporary, then why are we here? And I tend to believe that we're here for experiences, for shared experiences, and for connection between each other, and to bring other people up in the process of this. And in bringing other people up, the miracle in this inverse mentality is that by doing it, you end up bringing yourself up. The irony of life is when you serve yourself, you actually serve a smaller version of yourself, and you live a smaller and more isolated life. You may end up building palaces on top of mountains, but you will be there alone. But when you serve other people, you bring everyone up, and in the process, you are elevated, and you are resolve much of the things that you're seeking. See, those people that serve themselves and serve their own interests, they're seeking the same things that people that serve others do. They're seeking a sense of validation, a sense of purpose, a sense of significance, but they think they are going to find it by putting themselves on a pedestal. And what they end up finding is that none of it is fulfilling. They end up finding themselves at the end of a road. The classic film, what was Citizen Kane, who achieved so much wealth, but was isolated and alone in a mansion by himself, had nothing, had everything and nothing at the same time. That was the irony of Citizen Kane by Orson Welles. Orson Welles was an amazing actor, by the way. Anyways, I digress. But that's the irony of it. I see friends doing it all the time. So yeah, that's, that kind of, for me, it was kind of what those first experiences initiated. And I knew that I had all the same givings of any human. We all have our weaknesses. No one is here without weakness. No one is here without weakness. And so you have to be aware of those weaknesses. You have to address them. But yeah, maybe. But I do think that moment may have been one of the big moments that set me on a different path and set me heading in a different direction.
I love that. There are so many things again when you say it, like leading to another. I will ask you a question in a second, but I love what you say, especially when you pointed out how people chase like certain things and money and prestige. And I have met some very rich people. They were the most unhappiest people I've ever met in my entire life. And I couldn't believe that at that time I was untangling my own beliefs about money and understanding that, because I grew up with these, limiting beliefs like money is the root of all evil, coming from a poverty background, never having enough. So I had a competing belief within me subconsciously that was running, that would hold me back from actually having financial success, because I was believing that if I was financially successful, I would be lonely, or I don't have friends, or I'm not loving, I'm unkind, because that was a picture that was, painted in my.
I'm with you. I 100% understand that. And I have that same fear and that same weakness and that same limiting belief. And you're right. It's not accurate. The worship of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Not money will give you the ability to magnify your impact in ways that you can't imagine. If you love people, you can magnify that love towards people with money. But if you worship money, if money is the centerpiece of your life, it is what you want, you will be lonely, like those people you talked about. You will be isolated because you're serving something that is temporary. You're serving something that has no moral basis. You're achieving something that has no divine impact on your life and will pass, just like your flesh and blood will pass. And, I love these topics because I'm so passionate about this stuff. This might be one of my favorite topics. I could go into the spiritual eternally, because we all will go eternally into the spiritual. But yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. And it took me a while to actually untangle that, because first and foremost, like it was always a separation towards money. I would always keep it very separate. I would work about with my body and my spirituality and love, but I would keep that separate. And then I understood, oh my gosh, it's all one. Why is that separate? It's like me. It's my, like, I'm treating my body. It's my soulmate. And then I started to actually treat it like my partner, like my soulmate kind of thing. And I would actually start working on my relationship with money and ask a question like, how do you feel? And then I would realize how I actually treated my thoughts about money. Like, who wants to be in a relationship with someone when I constantly say, you're evil, I don't want you, or this like push pull, like, I need you. No, I don't want you. I need you. And that was really
So
interesting,
true.
this journey, and to untangle. I'm still doing a lot of, like a lot of work on it. And it's a constant work. It's a constant choosing and seeing and wanting to see. And then little sneaky things come to the surface, but it's really rewarding and interesting. And now I can really lightly talk about money and say it's a beautiful tool. You can create so much. I have so many projects on my mind, like really passionate about Gaia and, the earth and the oceans and helping people and giving them opportunities, because it's just like sharing love, sharing food, and really using it as a tool, allowing it to be in my life to amplify things and to accelerate processes, certain things, right? And it gives you absolute freedom. It's just how it is in this world, and to like just embrace it, just like love and everything else. And then I think when you approach it from this perspective, like, it's just beautiful. Yeah. So I'm glad that I kind of, went on this journey, on this path, because before it was like not a great relationship. And I'm grateful for the people that were in my life who were showing me exactly that, because without them, without meeting these people and seeing how much they attached their identity towards money and how they actually viewed money, I would have never come to this point. So I'm grateful I had to go through this and learn this. So yeah, it's
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I do the same thing with the analogy of my relationship with money. For me, it was that fear. I could feel that fear. It's like every time I deal with money, I get afraid. Like, what kind of if that were an actual marriage or an actual relationship, like what kind of a relationship would that be? Like, if I'm afraid of the woman I love, right, or the woman that I'm with, like, it wouldn't be a very good relationship. So I'm with you. I still have to address it. And it's taken years, and I still think I have some work to do, but I think I'm on the cusp of a breakthrough. But it's taken years to kind of look at that and go, okay, let's not be afraid of this. Let's welcome it, and let's take it at a pace. You have to pace yourself. Money attracts things that sometimes are scary, attracts people, relationships. Sometimes people perceive you differently. Sometimes people will treat you differently, and it's scary that that your character is going to change because of that. And you must constantly take it at a pace and remember who you are and remember what's important to you. And the money is not what's important to you. It's the people and the relationships are, and the money will come and go, and it has to be able to come and go. It has to be able to flow. It's like nature will come. Nature moves in a similar way. You'll have floods and you'll have droughts. That's the same with money, and you have to let it do that without impacting who you are. You have to be the stone. You have to be the Buddha. You have to remain the same throughout the transcendence, and that goes to what you said about the journey, which is it is about the journey. All life is about the journey. Everything is changing, and you must remain present in your journey, because the one thing that I believe is that the journey is what's eternal. If you believe in a spirit, then you believe that the spirit is eternal. The flesh is finite. The mind is finite. The only thing that's infinite is the spirit. And the spirit is what the journey is about. And this life is a spiritual journey. That you are shaping yourself in preparation for death. All of life is preparation for death. And so that is the journey that we're all on. And if you're not prepared for that transcendence into the unknown, and if you're not building tools to prepare yourself for it, which is being present in your journey and having awareness, like you said, and accepting the vulnerabilities of life through money, through relationships, through fame, fortune, etc., then you're not building a soul that's prepared for what is to come next. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's a lot of kind of yeah, whatever. That's a lot of lingo about a lot of different things, but it is to say that money ebbs and flows just like everything. Money comes and goes just like life, and that relationship is important to understand. I think you're right.
I absolutely love that what you said. And like we, I think we both share the same belief that like what you just said, that our soul is here and in this human experience, we're on a journey and we are here to grow and evolve. And based on my personal experiences and also with the people I had the pleasure to encounter in my life and get to know and work with, that our soul chooses, like I believe in a pre-birth plan, and our soul chooses the most challenging life path, because not because it's fun for the ego, but it's like because challenges, of course, accelerate the growth process. And the goal of the soul is to evolve as fast as possible and learn as much as possible, dive into the unknown. So I learned to embrace challenges, like we said at the beginning, like you chose the path and you try to do, or you put yourself into uncomfortable situations, just like going to the gym. You're not going to the gym to be comfortable, hold a towel and zip on your water. There's no muscle growth happening, right? And it's the same with life. Like, I'm not talking about we don't have to be constantly into terror zone and into fight or flight all day, every day, but a little bit into stretching zone, doing something that's a little bit uncomfortable. I think it's very crucial and important. And most people shy away from that when oh, it's uncomfortable. No, I don't do this. But it's when you start to embrace you get addicted, and it's accelerating, I think. And especially because I have been, when I was boxing and actively as an amateur boxer in New Zealand, it was so like I got really, of course, you get addicted to the challenge, going in the ring, the competition, the fear before. It sounds so counterintuitive, because it's like a love-hate relationship with the nerves. Everyone deals with it differently. And you know that from your own being an athlete and working with athletes and doing the documentaries, it's no matter what sports, there's always fear, right? The unknown. There's always this adrenaline shooting through your body. And yeah, embracing that, knowing that this is actually life. That means you are alive. Having fear equals being alive, and starting to embrace that, not running from it, but starting to walk through the fire. I think, yeah, that's coming back to the soul journey. That's a blessing. And of course, like, in the moment when things happen, when shit hits the fan, basically, it's not comfortable. And it's also about what I've learned. And I used to do that for sure. I was a victim of that, or guilty, let's say it like that. Sometimes bypassing things as well, especially when you get the spiritual awareness, like bypassing the pain. Oh yeah, it's something better is coming instead. And so I missed the part of actually feeling and embracing it, or the fear. And of course, that will come to the surface again. So it's really important to feel whatever you feel in this moment, and then take the action or whatever tool we have. And so have you experienced that? Have you had moments in life where you were trying to bypass certain challenges or things? Happen subconsciously most of the time, I guess. How can you?
Yeah. Well, I had a bunch of I'll answer your question, but first I wanna, I heard a lot of what you were saying there, very Buddhist in nature, because the Buddhists do believe that we choose our life. And the beauty of that and the return from that is that it means that you have to take responsibility for everything in life. And there's power in that. You're
Mm.
not a victim. The life you've chosen is the life you've chosen. Own it, right? The other thing that I thought of when you were talking about the struggle and the suffering was the choice to suffer is a very human experience. And it's what separates us from nature, because nature will choose the path of least resistance. If you leave a drip of water go down the windshield of a rain, it will choose the path of least resistance, right? It will go down that path that is most simple. But the human experience, what's unique and almost uniquely spiritual about it, is that we will choose the path sometimes of the greatest struggle, because in that we will grow, we will strengthen, we will change. And that is a very unnatural experience. And that unnatural experience will create supernatural moments where you're learning something about yourself and about your existence that you wouldn't have learned otherwise, which I think is beautiful. But to your question, I think you were asking was, have there been moments where I've avoided struggle? Was that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I think what the thought that comes to mind was, struggle induces a certain amount of fear.
yeah.
There's when you first come against struggle, you are afraid, and that and how you respond to that fear will determine which direction you go, whether you'll go in the path of least resistance or you'll face your fears and overcome your challenges. And I remember specifically when I moved to LA, I moved to LA because I wanted to become a movie star. I wanted to become an actor. That's what I wanted. That dream was so big and so much bigger than me, and Hollywood felt so much bigger than me that at that time in my life, when I moved out there, I lived on a sailboat. It was a small sailboat in the Marina del Rey, and I never faced that dream head on. I remember spending the first 2 years of my life in LA, and a lot of that time I spent in that boat dreaming of what I wanted while I smoked pot and wasted time and not facing it, not facing an agent, not going to auditions, not being rejected because I wasn't quote unquote the right person or not good enough, even though that's not a thing, but that's what the perception you might take away from not being awarded a job. I didn't face that. I stayed in that boat. I stayed in that fear. And that for a long time in my life was a big regret. You don't get to be young twice. You don't get to chase those romantic, youthful dreams twice. You get to do it once. And then you start to have responsibilities. You start to get married. You start to have a house. You start to have things that you have to live up to. And you have to balance those responsibilities with dreams. But when you're 20 something and you have nothing to lose and you move out to Hollywood and you're young, you get to go for it. You get to go hard. You can live off of saltine crackers and water and try to make it in Hollywood. I missed that opportunity. I took the opportunity. I went out there, but fear ruled my decisions and I missed the opportunities. Even though I did some great things behind the scenes on sets, I did not get in front of the camera, which was my dream. So yeah, I definitely have let fear drive my choices. I have at times not faced the struggle, and I don't look at that. While I mentioned that there was some regret in that, I think it's regret is kind of a pointless emotion. There are lessons that I've learned from that, but there were moments that I wished I could have said to myself, "Go out, do it. It's your one chance. You'll never have this window again." Because I'm not gonna move to Hollywood at 50 with a family and a kid, that's just not a thing. So, yeah, definitely I've had those moments, but they've made me who I am, so I
Yeah.
I I've had a good ride.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing this. So you never ever stepped in front of the camera? Did you never try after that again?
No, I did. I mean, I did I've stepped in front of the camera a lot in my life. I've done a lot of things on camera. I mean, and by that I mean but by that I mean not with an agent
Yeah.
and not for commercials and not in Hollywood in a really big kind of setting where the stakes were high and the opportunity to win was higher. So it was that period in my life that kind of passed me by. But since then, I've definitely taken opportunities to step in front of the camera. I've lost a little of that youthful kind of innocence of being an actor. I've lost a little of that. So it's not as deep of a passion. I think now my passion is doing stuff like this, and we're on camera, which is cool, and
Yeah.
podcasting and reaching
Yeah.
out to people.
You have a great presence. You talk well, and who knows? I also believe that perhaps, that was your, of course, that was your soul path. Like, and you chose that. I always talk in like we have different timelines that we can choose from, and depending on the actions and choices we make, timelines change. So that was a high potential because whatever desire we have, or even fear that it is out there, it's already ours. We can have it, and it's just what you said so beautifully. But if we don't take action, aligned action with that path, it will not happen. And that's what most people. That is, I think, a thing in the spiritual community where people like think they sit in the lotus position, roll their thumbs and meditate on their dreams all day. It's like it's one part, but the other big part is also to take aligned action and to make things happen. And yeah, like you said, that wasn't the path. But however, it led you on a different path that probably was far greater. You learned more things, you had more insights and things that you wouldn't have learned if you would have taken that path. So there's always next lifetime,
I like it.
You can be a big Hollywood star. Who knows if Hollywood is existing then? Who knows? But thank you for that. And it's great. It's also a good motivator for people. I always love that, when you share something like this, and then when I listen to that, it motivates me and be like, you know what? Go for it. Go for it. You have nothing to lose. You're like in a great position, have no like responsibilities other than looking after myself right now. And it's beautiful. And it reminds me of the movie Nayat, the swimmer, which is based on the true story. Oh my gosh. When she was trying to swim, was it Cuba? Cuba?
Yeah,
Cuba?
I did. I watched that movie. Yeah, yeah, I did.
Oh, I've already five
From
times.
Cuba to Florida, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, it's such an inspiration. Those movies get me going. And after that, I'm just like, how it happens, you get activated, you be like, oh my gosh, what are you scared about? And I know you said that before. And I have to experience myself. I consider myself like a dreamer, visionary. However, like I still think I'm playing way too small. But then when you have people and you see them and they have their house and they stay all, like for 20 years in the same company, and then they meet someone like me, for them, I'm like, because I have a nomadic lifestyle, I never know where I will be living and all these kind of things, and just jump onto opportunities. But still, I'm still like thinking small, I feel. And it's always good to surround yourself with people who already like 10 times, who have achieved 10 times more, who have jumped 10 times more or risked more. What is the saying? If you are the smartest person in the room is too small or something. I can't remember, but the saying goes like, and I think if you want to grow, and it's scary because it's nice to be the one. Oh yeah, they admire me. I have achieved a lot, but like if you come into a room and then there are people like that you feel like intimidated by, it's actually a good thing. But most people avoid that. And I can include myself. Sometimes I would avoid that because I don't want to feel like, so low or small. But it's actually
Yeah.
the same. I can always refer back to box. I would always seek for the best sparring partner, for someone who's 10 times better than me. At the beginning, it was intimidating. And I would think, why would I do that? But then, through my process, I learned they can pick me up. I can learn, I can try to, like I can just accelerate my growth process so much more. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's 100% true. You do have to but there's two sides. You do have to surround yourself by people that will challenge you and intimidate you and make you go further. You have to immerse yourself in those relationships so that you can improve, I think, and not feel inferior to them, but feel like it's an opportunity for iron to sharpen iron. And in the same sense, you have to bring other people up as well. I have a hurtful story of a family member that I care deeply for, who is so obsessed with that idea that he has to surround himself by these people, that he won't surround himself by people that he feels lesser than him. And because of that, we don't have a relationship. And that person is my brother. And because he sees the family as lesser than him. And so because of that, I think that I say that statement with a caveat. I think, yes, you got to surround yourself by people that are going to bring you up, but in the same sense, don't 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 exclude people that are trying to come up,
Mhm.
right? And that you can help bring up. So I think there's two sides to that. That's all that, and that is the balance, right? And the balance is the other key to life. And the balance is always the other key to life. There's never one without the other. And you know this with yoga, and you know this with other forms of meditation. And while you work for strength, you also have to work for flexibility. And there's never one without the other. So, but I'm 100% with you. You have to surround yourself by people that are going to bring you up and not feel inferior to them. And because of that, you will continue to climb.
I love that what you just said with the balance, because I had a friend once, and he was in that process of basically improving himself and constantly getting challenged. And then at some point, he wouldn't even want to spend time with people who are lower, lesser than them, because he was afraid that this would pull him down. And I was observing that, and I even had like moments of thoughts like that. Where I was like, oh, I can't be with people who are lower than me. That will just bring me down. I'm just on my path right now. But I wouldn't really, how would I say, embody it that or execute. It was just thoughts. I was
Of
scared.
course.
I was scared, like, oh, if I spend too much time with them, I was afraid that I would, regress. But then I had to learn, okay, there's a balance. So I was just learning to trust my intuition. I was learning to trust, okay, how much energy have I for this, and how much do I need to be pulled up right now. I needed to, so I was always looking for the balance. And I think that's very important. And one of my mentors once said, or I can't remember if I heard it somewhere, like, for example, if we have a limiting belief, like we shared, for example, with the money, if you are afraid of money, then surround yourself by people who don't have that limiting belief. That will just help you to like embody that more and be comfortable. So, and that can be with anything, can be with your body, can be with relationships. So, for example, I have never had like a I mean, I had relationships, right? But I haven't found my person yet as such. So what I do, of course, and my experiences from my childhood and all these things are not the greatest reflection of healthy relationships, that the one that I desire. And so it's beautiful for me to surround myself with people who have this relationship, so I can actually break those limiting beliefs and see, okay, it's actually possible, and talk to them and learn through their experiences, through their challenges and their choices. So that's what I was like getting to. And it's important for people to know that even if they have this not available, this energy or frequency, for example, whatever they're looking for, we have everything available right now. Beautiful podcasts, videos, on YouTube, people who are just talking about things. If, for example, people are in a more challenging situation, that they have only people around them who are bringing them down, they can uplift themselves through that. That's what I did most of the time anyways. Yeah. So that's why this beautiful podcast, so people can listen to it and be like, oh wow, this is a story from Barry, and that's his life. And so which is, I know there's so much to talk about. Coming to the point of, I love that when you shared that, and I didn't forget this about your wife that you met in Italy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was that? I know it's a deeper topic and goes probably far beyond that, but how was that journey for you? How was meeting that person? How did you know? And being on your journey anyway, being so self-aware, how was that for you?
Well, I met my wife in Costa Rica
Yeah.
on the beach after years of chasing relationships. Some relationships meaningful, some relationships not so meaningful, maybe pointless. But at that time in my life, I knew what I wanted, and I knew what it meant to find a good woman. And I knew when I met her that she fulfilled that. So I chased her from Costa Rica to Italy. I moved to Italy and I lived there for 3 years. And I wanted to immerse myself in the culture, understand the culture, be able to speak Italian so that I could communicate and understand her, and also understand her mom and her family. And that was a big part of that journey. And that was a moment that maybe part of my experience in Hollywood was a payoff, where I wasn't going to let fear determine my direction. I was going to risk it all and go for what I wanted. And in that case, I did, and it was a very rewarding experience. We're married now today, still 15 years. And yeah, no, it's been, that was definitely a great victory in my life of ups and downs for sure. And definitely easily the highlight, one of the greatest highlights of my life. And it's a big centerpiece in the book. It's the romantic part of the book that I think people love and will enjoy.
I love that. And yeah, of course, everyone wants to meet that person in their life. Honestly, I haven't met really people who don't. But the journey, or my what I'm also portraying as one of the main messages, is that we are that person first and foremost within ourselves. And that's why it's so important to get to know yourself first, and to know your fears, your desires, because you will spend the rest of your life with 100%. That's one thing for sure. And I will spend the rest of my life with. Everything else is not guaranteed, right? That's my
Yeah.
and so also what that you had your journey, like you said, you had like a different relationships, some meaningful, some not. And we learn from every experience. And I have the same. And now I know exactly what I want and what I need. But the reason why I do is because I took that time to understand myself, and to take away from what I needed to learn from these experiences, from my past relationships, what did go right, or what was well, what didn't go so well. And most people don't. They don't take that time. They look to the external. They just, different phase, same challenges, but they don't understand that actually everything starts within us. And of course, you definitely can say that, I guess, too, that even if you find that person, there will be challenges. They will trigger you. They're meant to trigger you. They actually probably trigger you more than any other person, in good and positive, positive and negative ways, whatever, however you want to use the semantics. But like because they bring out the parts within you that need to, you need to see, you need to shed, to heal, transmute, grow, whatever. Is that your experience? Yeah, and it's a choice.
Yeah. No, I mean, throughout my history with relationships, I found that every relationship, every time you care about someone, they definitely bring out things in you that are good and bad. What became important to me and what I realized was um the people who would learn from those and move forward from those and be forgiving of those were much easier to be with than the people that would hold grudges and hold it against you and build animosity and drive you to kind of submit to them, and apologize for every mistake and wear out the relationship over for just minor moments. So she is so I had to find the yin to my yang. I did not look for myself. I looked for someone who fulfilled my weakest parts. I did not look for someone who was strong where I was strong. I looked for someone who was strong where I was weak. And I knew and that's not always easy because we like to see strength in people and we perceive our strengths as being the strengths that we like to see. So I had to face my weaknesses and go, you're really bad at this. You're really bad at holding grudges and having arguments. You should find someone who's not bad at that. You're really, and so things like that. And then the other thing that I did when I came to that time in my life is I had someone smarter than me said, if you are ready to be with someone, you should prepare space for them in your life. So literally, I did things as simple as making space in my closet where I only used half of my closet. And I left half of my closet empty under the assumption that someone was going to fill that part of my closet. And that small symbolism represented that I was ready to make space for someone in my life, that I didn't need to own everything in my space, that someone else could own part of it. And so those two things became key in preparation for when I met my wife. I was ready to have her in my life. I was ready to accept that her weaknesses were my strengths and my weaknesses were her strengths, and there was space for her in my life. And so those were big pieces, I think, that have played into our success, especially when we first started, but also our success over the long term.
I love that. And I love what you just said, the symbolism of making space. That is where it starts, those little things that have a ripple effect on everything else. Because if you don't make space and, not just like the cupboard or like other things, even people who like to explore and like, for example, I can see like I have so many different interests and I'm very passionate and need to express myself in many facets through a lot of things. I need to make space for this person too, because if I keep myself 24/7 busy with all these things, and they're great, but if I do not allow space for another person, and I learned that from my past relationship because I was constantly busy with other people, looking after animals, boxing, training, all of that, and there was not much space for that person. So I learned that. That's definitely true. Yeah. So I really love that. That took a totally different turn here.
No, that's fine. This has been awesome. I love this. I'm so glad that you've had me part of your podcast.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask about like I do have a couple of more questions. With your book, The Unknown Adventure, can you talk a bit about that and also where people can find it? And like I know it's obviously your journey and you're writing a second one. And yeah, feel free to talk a bit about it.
Well, yeah, my book, The Unknown Adventurer, a lot of what I talked about is in it. The
Yeah.
stories of going to the Himalayas, my work in documentary film, my romance, my move to Hollywood. It's all in there. And you can find it at endlessmediame.com. That's endlessmediae.com. And you'll find on the tabs, you'll find the book. And there is a free download of a digital copy that you can get from listening to this podcast. If you go to download and you fill out the form and you put the name of this podcast in the comments, I will send you a free copy from watching this of the book. And yeah, that's my first book. I'm super excited. And I have another book. It's coming. It's not out yet. It's about my trip across the country during COVID. The documentary that I made was called The Empty America, and it's going to mirror that, and it's going to be an in-depth story of that. And there's a lot to that. I'll save opening that story for another podcast. We'll have to come back and talk about that. But that's what's coming.
I'm excited. I cannot wait to read this book. And thank you so much for this amazing gift to give that to the listeners. And I will make sure I will put this in the comments below. And also when I start putting out snippets on social media to mention that so that people really get, like that they learn more about your beautiful journey. Because I can only imagine, like, from what we spoke about, and then you bring it out in the book and how you write and just sharing more in depth. I just love your story, and I just love talking about everything. And because we share similar values and the belief system as well. So that's why it's matching. It's just to finish that off, like one question that I had was what when you I know probably there were many, but what do you think was one of the most challenging things for you to overcome where you got challenged in your belief systems? I think it's a really tough question. There are probably many things to answer to, but where you thought, okay, where you really question everything.
Well, the biggest challenge is, a friend of mine had a kid who was born with a sickness at a very young age called tubular sclerosis, where he has tumors throughout his entire body, and basically his life will never be a healthy life. His memory and mentality is dwarfed, and chances are he won't live much past his 20s. Moments like that make you question everything
Mm.
because there's not a clear answer to why something like that happens to children, other than what we learn from it, what we take away from it, and how it changes us. So moments like that always challenge what I believe. Trying to tell his father that there's a God, that life has meaning in those moments, it's not always fair, and it's not an easy answer that you can just give, and it's maybe not the time to give it. And in those moments, I think you just sit with people and let them process it. And so those would be the biggest challenges to any belief, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe. Those are the biggest challenges, the hardest answers. But I think the reason I believe what I believe is because it gives purpose to my life. I can remove the idea of a God. I can say that life has no meaning, that meaning is what we give it. I can do all those things. It's a very self-centered view of the world, that I'm giving meaning, that I'm only here to live and to die. It's a very naturalistic view of the world. You end up worshiping nature. I'd rather worship something greater than nature. I'd rather worship something greater than myself. That gives me meaning and keeps me humble and forces me to submit my will to something that has created me and created all of this. But for me to pass that on or drive that on to someone who's going through suffering is I don't think it's my place. It's probably one of the biggest challenges that I go through in my belief, and it's usually one of those times when I say the least. But yeah, that would be one of those moments.
I love that. And thank you for this reminder. I can totally share that with you because I feel the same. And it was hard and it is still challenging for me at times because having this understanding on my own beliefs, like that our soul chooses this lifetime, right? And like what you just said in that moment, the best is just to be and to hold space. And there's no need to say anything because it will not be perceived and it's not my place to say anything, right? And I had to learn that and continue to learn that because there's this need to probably nurture and to help. But in that moment, it's just and sometimes it is just like that, to just most of the time it is about holding space for that person, for that thing, whatever it is, and to just let it be. And it will reveal itself. And I guess from a human perspective, that's the hardest thing to do because we like to fix and do things. And yeah, so that was beautiful. I love that. And is there, before we finish off, because I know it's a lot and we have shared so much, but I would love, I'm sure listeners want to have you back at some point when you're free and we can talk about more. And then you probably will be in the midst of writing your second book anyways. Any last message you would like to leave the listeners with, and also at the end where they can find you? And I obviously will put everything down in the description box. Yeah.
No, for me, it's like, never stop learning, never stop being curious, never stop asking questions, and never stop challenging yourself, continue to push yourself into the struggle all the way to the end, no matter how hard it gets. That's where you find life. And so That's for me the summary of our conversation and a lot of what we talked about.
I love that. Never stop challenging yourself and never stop being curious, never stop learning. Guys, that's a beautiful message. I hope you really receive that on every cell in your body and that gets you activated just like me right now. And where can people find you if they want to know more about you, want to connect with you? And of course, you just mentioned the book before, which they can find on your website. Anywhere else where people can connect with you?
Yeah, on that website, Endless Media Me, ME, you can find my films, my bio, contact, social media links, my book. Reach out, say hi. I would love to connect with your audience. But yeah, you can find everything on endlessmediame.com.
Wonderful. Perfect. Keeps it very simple. Love that. And thank you so much, Barry, for this beautiful conversation. I know I can talk for another hour and longer than that, but we respect the time, also your time. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, your energy, and your love. And I can't wait to have you back again at some point.
Same here. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. And until the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to DinsTalk. I hope today's conversation sparked something within you. Remember, you have the power to align with your soul, take bold action, and live a life fueled by passion. Don't forget to subscribe, share with others, and leave a comment if this episode resonated with you. And as always, do it, never stop. Until next time, keep claiming your fire and your power.